any movies a moisture rating in quite a while, so I figured it was about time I chimed in again. I saw A Cure for Wellness tonight, and it's a movie I'd like to review because it's one of the rare originals from Hollywood because most shit is just remade, revamped, or a sequel to something. This is a completely original idea. It's directed by a man who has probably one of the coolest names in Hollywood, Gore Verbinski. That name sounds like a fucking fierce pirate from ancient history. It's such a dope name. It sounds like some type of scary urban legend parents would make up to make their kids eat their vegetables. Instead of the boogeyman, it'd be, you better finish those greens or Gore Verbinski's gonna knock on the door and direct a mediocre movie. I kinda popped the nipples off of this titty here and already told you what I think of the movie, and that it's very mediocre, but let me tell you why. First off, the acting is amazing. Everyone did a fucking great job acting in this movie. The shots, the cinematography, the music, the whole atmosphere, everything was great. It was really reminiscent of like a bioshock live action. It was really cool. The body horror was awesome. Everything looked great. But what blew anus about the movie was its plot. The plot was so convoluted and it was just so hard to follow, it made no sense, and you were always looking for answers, never got them, or got some answers that just were stupid. Another thing that also sucked about the movie was the length, that it was just way too long. It just dragged on and on and on. They had two places where the movie should have ended, could have ended, and would have been better if it ended at, but then just continued going for another 30-some minutes. I also didn't like how predictable the twists in the movie were. Nothing really caught me by surprise. It all kind of just went how you'd expect because there really wasn't any other explanation, so let me just go ahead and explain that. As is tradition with my moisture reviews, I'm gonna spoil some of the plot, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. The plot is basically the Amazing Spider-Man 2's Green Goblin gets called by his business to go find their CEO who's been at a vacation place for a while and they need him to come in to do paperwork. It looks like he's mentally unwell and they need him to bring him back. So he goes to this castle, he finds a lot of other old people are staying there, he meets the doctors, he's inquiring about the guy he's looking for, doesn't get the answers he wants, and then eventually leaves the sanitarium, and as he's leaving, a deer hits the car, he gets in this accident, and then he ends up as a patient at the sanitarium. That's when he starts to learn that, something more sinister is going on beneath the surface. One thing leads to another, and he's in a sensory deprivation tank, and then all of a sudden a bunch of eels come out of nowhere, and there's no one there to help him as he's panicking because the doctor who's supposed to be keeping an eye on him is masturbating to a nurse who has her titties out. I'm not making that up, that's an actual scene in the movie. It's by no means an important scene to the movie in any regard whatsoever, but it's a scene I'd like to talk about briefly. The masturbation just did not look real at all. At no point did I think, this man may actually be masturbating. I knew right away that was an actor acting. He wasn't actually masturbating. It took me way out of the mood, and I lost interest in the film momentarily. He was a fucking amateur. If you need an actor who can really sell it, you should have fucking called me up and I would have made it seem like I was actually masturbating. Hell, I might have even actually masturbated for the scene if you paid me enough. I'm kidding, I would have done it for free just for the love of the sport. But still, that shit happens, and then he learns a lot more stuff, the shit's not that great there. He starts to learn some of the history of the castle, how there was a baron and a baroness, and the baron wanted a perfect child, but this baroness couldn't get pregnant, until she did get pregnant, and then the villagers revolted and they burned her alive and then threw the fetus into a well. Okay, so as the story develops, one thing leads to another. The fetus is still alive, and it's a patient at the sanitarium named Hannah, who the main character has met before. And then it turns out the main doctor is the father of that girl, which makes him the Baron. And they've been living for over 200 years. The way they do this is some shit with eels. It's not explained very well, and here's the first major gripe. It's never explained how they've been able to live so long or what the exact process is that's enabling them to be pretty much immortal. All we know is that the way they're achieving it is by draining old people of their life force or something like that, sweating them to death, I believe. And none of the old people know or care. They believe they're there for a cure for a sickness they don't have. Just like this general bad thing that they're told they have, and they're there for a cure. They love it there. They give them crackers and they're very satisfied. Oh, we don't want to leave. They massage my toes every now and then, and I like that. I might as well stay. He's trying to convince them they don't care. They're brainwashed, and they turn on the main character. And then he eventually is subjected to the eel treatment. And then, some more shit happens, and then he gets into a showdown with the Baron, who has married his daughter, and is about to try and impregnate her. So as he's about to fuck his daughter, the main character comes in and beats his ass. I'm kidding, he actually gets his ass beaten. And then the daughter kills the Baron, who was her father. Roll credits. That's basically the movie's plot in a nutshell, with a lot of other stuff that happens in between. There was a scene where the Baron fingered his daughter and then took a big huff of his fingers, just a big old sniff of his fingers, just like a fucking middle schooler sniffing a Sharpie to get high. And the audience gasped when he did that, but I don't know why they're trying to get on their high horse. It's nothing none of us haven't seen in porn before. Pretty tame scene overall, some normal stuff. And then some other shit happens. A lot of shit happens in the movie. It's a really fucking long movie. But really, it follows the same formulaic pattern in all romance movies that we're familiar with. Boy meets girl in a sanitarium, girl's dad's trying to fuck her. It's a story we've seen done a million times. But Gore Verbinski did a great job in adding a lot of elements and different concepts to this movie. He brought in a lot of old people. You saw a lot of old titties in there, a lot of old naked women. There were some old naked men too. If you want to get your fill of old naked people, this is the movie for you. But now the point of me telling you just the general plot in a nutshell is it was extremely predictable if you were watching the movie that the main doctor was probably the Baron, because there was no other reason why he would be doing any of the shit he was, and that the girl was probably the fetus because it's found out very early that the fetus survived, so you could connect the dots there. And that was pretty much the only big twist in the movie. A lot of the other stuff that was in the movie is not really explained well, so it just leaves so much to interpretation, which I didn't like because it just had so many plot holes in there, and I really didn't understand how this crazy Baron could have so many loyal followers just okay with his intention here. He wants to fuck his daughter and make a good child. We'll help support him. We'll start draining some old people of their sweat and kill them. But now, overall, the movie looked great. Everything was cool looking. A lot of cool stuff happened. It's just, overall, the plot was so weak and so poorly explained, and it was just way, way too long and should have ended 2-3 times before it actually did. So, to give this movie a moisture rating, I'd probably give this one a crème de la mer. It's a moisturizer that's not super popular, but it's a decent moisturizer. It does its job pretty well from what I've been told, and I've used it once or twice because I've tried just about every moisturizer because my hands get really dry sometimes and they start cracking. And crème de la mer, it wasn't bad. It did its job a little bit. It kept my hands moisturized for a little bit, which is what this movie did. It held my attention for probably the first half because everything looked cool and some cool stuff was going on, and the mystery of it all was really nice. But then it just kept going. It dragged on. At no point was this movie scary. I think they tried to market it as a horror movie, but it's really not a horror movie at all. So I don't think anyone should go in expecting to be scared. Just more creeped out or maybe even cringe from